Good morning, spiritual companions. We are reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, continuing Chapter 3, Advice to Householders, on page 184. Sunday, October 22nd, 1882. It was the day of Vijaya, the last day of the celebration of the worship of Durga, when the clay image is immersed in the water of a lake or river. About 9 o'clock in the morning, M was seated on the floor of the master's room at Dakshineswar, near Sri Ramakrishna, who was reclining on the small couch. Rakal was then living with the master, and Narendra and Bhavanath visited him frequently. Baburam had seen him only once or twice. Master to M: How are you getting along with your meditation nowadays? What aspect of God appeals to your mind, with form or without form? M: Sir, at present, I cannot fix my mind on God with form. On the other hand, I can't concentrate steadily on God without form. Master: Now you see that the mind cannot be fixed all of a sudden on the formless aspect of God. It is wise to think of God with form at the beginning. M: Do you mean to suggest that one should meditate on clay images? Master: Why clay? These images are the embodiments of consciousness. M: Even so, one must think of hands, feet, and the other parts of the body. But again, I realize that the mind cannot be concentrated unless one meditates in the beginning on God with form. You have told me so. Well, God can easily assume different forms. May one meditate on the form of one's own mother? Master: Yes, the mother should be adored. She is indeed an embodiment of Brahman. M sat in silence. After a few minutes, he asked the master, What does one feel while thinking of God without form? Isn't it possible to describe it? After some reflection, the master said, Do you know what it is like? He remained silent a moment and then said a few words to M about one's experiences when one realizes God with and without form. Master: You see, one must practice spiritual discipline to understand this correctly. Suppose there are treasures in a room. If you want to see them and lay hold of them, you must take the trouble to get the key and unlock the door. After that, you must take the treasures out. But suppose the room is locked, and standing outside the door, you merely say to yourself, Here, I have opened the door. Now I have broken the lock of the chest. Now I have taken out the treasure. Such brooding near the door will not enable you to achieve anything. You must practice discipline. The jnanis think of God without form. They don't accept the divine incarnation. Praising Sri Krishna, Arjuna said, Thou art Brahman absolute. Sri Krishna replied, Follow me, and you will know whether or not I am Brahman absolute. So saying, Sri Krishna led Arjuna to a certain place and asked him what he saw there. I see a huge tree, said Arjuna, and on it I notice fruits hanging like clusters of blackberries. Then Krishna said to Arjuna, Go nearer, and you will find that these are not clusters of blackberries, but clusters of innumerable Krishnas like me, hanging from the tree. In other words, divine incarnations without number appear and disappear on the tree of the absolute Brahman. I accept God with form when I am in the company of people who believe in that ideal, and I also agree with those who believe in the formless God. M. Smiling. You are as infinite as He of whom we have been talking. Truly, no one can fathom your depths. Master, smiling. Ah, I see you have found it out. Let me tell you something. One should follow various paths. One should practice each creed for a time. There are two classes of yogis. Some roam about visiting various holy places and have not yet found peace of mind. But some, having visited all the sacred places, have quieted their minds. Feeling serene and peaceful, they settle down in one place and no longer move about. In that one place, they are happy. They don't feel the need of going to any sacred place. If one of them ever visits a place of pilgrimage, it is only for the purpose of a new inspiration. One undoubtedly finds inspiration in a holy place. I accompanied Mathur Babu to Vrindavan. Hriday and the ladies of Mathur's family were in our party. No sooner did I see the Kaliyadaman Ghat than a divine emotion surged up within me. I was completely overwhelmed. Hriday used to bathe me there as if I were a small child. At dusk, the cow dust hour, I would walk on the bank of the Jamuna when the cattle returned along the sandy banks from their pastures. At the very sight of those cows, the thought of Krishna would be kindled in my mind. I would run along like a madman, crying, "Oh, where is Krishna? Where is my Krishna?" I went to Sayam Kunda and Radha Kunda in a palanquin and got out to visit the holy Mount Govardhan. Footnote on those. There are places near Mathura associated with the episode of Krishna and Radha. At the very sight of the mount, I was overpowered with divine emotion and ran to the top. I lost all consciousness of the world around me. The residents of the place helped me to come down. On my way to the sacred pools of Sayama Kunda and Radha Kunda, when I saw the meadows, the trees, the shrubs, the birds, and the deer, I was overcome with ecstasy. My clothes became wet with tears. I said, "O Krishna, everything here I see as it was in the olden days. You alone are absent." Seated inside the palanquin, I lost all power of speech. Hriday followed the palanquin. He had warned the bearers to be careful about me. Ganjamayi became very fond of me in Vrindavan. She was an old woman who lived all alone in a hut near the Nituvan. Referring to my spiritual condition and ecstasy, she said, "He is the very embodiment of Radha." She addressed me as Dulali, darling, when, with her, I forgot my food and drink, my bath, and all thought of going home. On some days, Hriday used to bring food from home and feed me. Gangamayi also served me with food prepared by her own hands. Gangamayi used to experience trances. At such times, a great crowd would come to see her. One day, in a state of ecstasy, she climbed on Hriday's shoulders. I didn't want to leave her and return to Calcutta. Everything was arranged for me to stay with her. I was to eat double-boiled rice, and we were to have our beds on either side of the cottage. All the arrangements had been made when Hriday said, "You have such a weak stomach. Who will look after you?" "Why," said Gangamayi, "I shall look after him. I will nurse him." Hriday was dragging me by one hand and she by the other when I remembered my mother, who was then living alone here in the Nabahat of the temple garden. I found it impossible to stay away from her and said to Gangamayi, "No, I must go." I loved the atmosphere of Vrindavan. About 11 o'clock, the master took his meal, the offerings from the temple of Kali. After taking his noonday rest, he resumed his conversation with the devotees. Every now and then he uttered the holy word Om, or repeated the sacred names of the deities. After sunset, the evening worship was performed in the temples. Since it was the day of Vijaya, the devotees first saluted the Divine Mother and then took the dust of the Master's feet. Footnote: taking the dust is a form of reverent salutation in which one touches the feet of a superior with one's forehead. End of chapter. End of today's reading, with blessings.